Well, good afternoon, YouTube. Welcome back to Highwayman Trucking and My Way on the Highway. We're just rolling through Las Cruces, New Mexico here this morning, or this afternoon, excuse me. I guess it's about 12 o'clock at home, so it's 11 o'clock here. Anyhow, we're heading through Las Cruces into El Paso, on my way to Hot Springs, Arkansas. And we're really trying to hustle bustle today. We've already gone about 400 miles. We've got right at 5 hours left of drive time for the day. So hopefully we hit 700 miles today. I'm gonna, like the song, do what they say can't be done. I've got to get to Hot Springs and drop tomorrow. And then I have to go about 112 miles from Hot Springs, Arkansas over to Broken Bow, Oklahoma. I have till 10 o'clock at night to load a backhaul that I picked up going right back home to Arizona, so that's always nice. But real hustle bustle day today. I just stopped and took a 30-minute break and I got my wiggles out, so to speak. I had to organize my truck a little bit. I hadn't made my bed and all that stuff. I'm usually pretty OCD about that, but I was in a hurry and left out this morning. Got loaded yesterday, but a bunch of confusion that happened I'll tell you about here in a few minutes. But I finally got loaded, and by the time I got home and got showered, got my truck loaded with the inside stuff, it was already about 6 o'clock, and I only had like 2 hours of drive time. And I just decided to spend time with my wife and grandson last night. Got up about 3:30 this morning and we headed out. So anyhow, beautiful clear day. Well, it was clear until I crossed into New Mexico. About 85 degrees. Fairly sunny, a little bit of cloud coverage to the northwest. And rolling along here. We'll talk to you again here when I get through El Paso. There's always traffic and congestion, so I don't really want to be talking and chit-chatting doing that. But I'll tell you what I experienced yesterday, and let me know your thoughts on that. Talk to you soon. Hello again, friends. So my dilemma yesterday was just kind of I can't really cuss on YouTube, but it was a cluster all day long. And this customer of mine, that's a regular customer who I really, really like, and I haul hay for quite regularly, lives in Hot Springs, Arkansas. And he does a lot of business. He sends probably, 3 to 5 trucks a week from the Phoenix area to his location in Arkansas, and he sells hay. And sorry about the camera there. Does pretty good business. Nicest guy in the world. And there was just a little bit of confusion. I always load at one particular farm for him in Buckeye, Arizona, and I love the place. I'll go ahead and say it if you saw it. I don't know if you saw my Facebook post yesterday, but Rocker 7 Farms, Buckeye, Arizona. Awesome place to load. So I show up there, and there were several trucks in front of me, so I just waited in line like usual. And after I was there a couple of hours, it was my turn to load. And Pablo, the squeeze operator, who was just a fantastic guy. I mean, professional to the core. He, hands down, is the best squeeze operator I have come across loading hay anywhere. And he always takes pride in his work. He's quick, he's efficient, he's polite, and he just does a real good job of putting the hay on the truck. He makes sure everything's packed tight, nothing's hanging off the edges, the front or the back, and really, really helps for load security. Another thing that he does is he doesn't overload me on height. And we'll get back to that here in a minute, but he doesn't overload me on height, and it's just a real pleasure. So I get up and it's my turn to load, and he says, well, I don't have you listed. And he called his boss, and his boss says, no, I don't have any loads for this particular customer. So I said, okay. Well, I called the customer, and he's like, well, are you at Rocker 7 or at this other place? And I said, no, I'm at Rocker 7. He's like, oh, shoot, I'm sorry. I meant to tell you, go to this new place that I had never been to before. So it's only about 6 miles away. I figured no big deal. I wasted a couple of hours, but it is what it is. I can't say enough good about this particular customer. So, it is what it is. I wasn't expecting anything out of it. So I go over to this other farm, and I don't know, probably 2 miles away, I start seeing this farm. This is a huge, huge facility. Probably the largest hay farm I've ever personally been on. And it was clear, based on the signage in the area and whatnot, that this had been one of the original homesteads in the Buckeye area from the late 1800s. And so my take on it, and after reviewing their Facebook page and one thing or another, is this particular farm, it's a feed farm place with a retail store and everything else, has been there for a long time and is the same family, etc. So I whip in there, and huge place, very, very well laid out. Their scale was really tight, but you can't help what that is. I don't expect them to spend thousands of dollars to get a new scale when it works perfectly fine. Just a little tight getting on and off. So anyhow, I get in there, and nice gal at the counter. She says, "Go get yourself weighed. I'll send an operator over to you, and he'll follow his direction, and we'll get you loaded." So this younger guy comes up to me, and he's like, "Did you get weighed okay?" And I'm like, "Yep, I figured it out." He's like, "All right, follow me over across, down the way to their bins." And it's probably a mile and a half away. And so I follow him over to their barns, and they just got hay everywhere. And he tells me where to park. We get that squared away. And I said to him, "Hey, before we start, I just want you to know, I don't want to tell you how to do your job. I know I hate it when people do that to me. But before I start, I want you to know I won't go over 14 feet tall." And he says, "Oh no, it'll be under 14. It'll be 13 and a half or whatever." I says, "That's fine. I just won't go over 14 tall for a couple of reasons. One, anything over 14 feet is permitted. Two, my straps are 30-foot straps, and they don't work when you go over 14 feet. It doesn't work, And I don't buy longer ones because I never go over 14 feet tall with this particular truck and trailer." So he's like, "Yeah, no problem, blah, blah, blah." And the way he was running the squeeze, I wanted to say that he was new. I don't believe that he was new. After chatting with him a bit, and they had several different options and ways of doing things, and I told them, I says, "Look," I says, "I'll be honest with you, I'm not saying you're wrong." I says, "What you're talking about, I got no clue. I've loaded hay all over the place, and I really just don't understand what you're talking about. This is how I've always done it. This is how the guy down the road from you does it." And he's like, "Oh, I know that guy. I was over there this morning." So, okay. I tell him, you know your job better than I do. You just go ahead and do whatever you need to do to get it loaded, and we're all good. And so I thought we were good. So he gets the front stack loaded and on my top deck, and it's fine. And then he goes to the bottom stack on the bottom deck, and he gets about halfway through, and I'm looking at it and I'm going, I know this guy is over 14 feet tall. I know my truck and trailer, I know my load. And he's overhyped. So I get out my tape measure and I measure it. Sure enough, we're just a hair under 14 and a half feet tall. Not legal. So I stop him and I'm like, man, we're, and he's like, oh, is it over 14? And I'm like, yeah, we're, 14 and a half. And he's like, all right, well, what do you want me to do? And I'm like, oh, that top row's got to have to come off. He's like, everybody always does it. We load thousands of trucks. And I go, again, I says, I'm not trying to be a jerk here. And I says, I don't want to tell you how to do your business. I'm just telling you, I personally will not haul it over 14 feet. And I says, I know, I hear all the time, everybody does it. I says, I won't do it. It is what it is. It's not worth it on a cheap load of hay to risk a ticket. So he's like, okay, well, if I pull the top layer off, whatever, it's easier for me, I guess because of how high their stacks were in the barn. He's like, it's actually easier for me. And I'm like, don't worry, I tell him that the customer, I'm sure, won't have a problem with it because I load at this other place and it's always the same height. And so about halfway through, the guy stops and leaves. And I'm kind of like, what the hell? About that time, the customer in Arkansas calls me and he says, hey, they, called me and told me you were fussing and complaining about the height. And I says, yeah, and I told him, I says, I've told you before, I won't go over 14. And he says, he reiterates to me, everybody does it all the time. I get, thousands of trucks that do it. He says, but if you don't feel comfortable with it, I understand, that's fine. Have them take the top row off in the story. All right, we'll get back to you, thank you. So I go over and find the kid on the squeeze, and he had gone down the way and unloaded what I found out was his boss's truck. And I believe it may be one of the owners or the original owner's grandson, rather, of the farm. And the place is called Bales of Hay in Buckeye, Arizona. And so the kid starts coming back towards me, and I'm going to be honest, I was a little bit irritated, and my intentions were to go over and say, look, I just got a call that you said I was complaining about this, and I used the word bitching, and I was going to tell him, you just told me 5 minutes ago that you were okay with this and everything was good. Are we going to get loaded, or what's the deal here? So I go over there and I tell him, I basically walk up to him and say that. I says, I just got a call from the customer saying you said I was bitching. The guy instantly blows up in my face, or at me from the top of the squeeze. And I'm trying to calm the kid down, and he's just, at that point looking for a fight. He says, I'm not cussing you, man. I says, I'm telling you what was just told to me. And anyhow, so he's actually on the phone on his headset with his boss, who's across the way. That boss comes hauling ass over to me, literally about runs up on me, and flat out tells me I'm about to get my ass kicked by two younger guys. Really? Very professional. Tells me I was cussing this guy out. He could hear me through the headsets. And I'm like, I wasn't cussing him out. I told him this is exactly what I heard. And I said, if my choice of language was wrong, I says, I apologize to you. But, so this guy, basically just wants to fight. He was an asshole first class. And, I don't know if I'm getting older or what, but the old me wouldn't have backed down an inch. And I was kind of trying to just be professional. I really liked this customer in Arkansas, and I didn't want anything to reflect on him. I can tell you this much, I'll fight any man head to head, but two guys on one, it wouldn't have been a fair fight, I promise you that. And, these kids think fighting's fun, and it is, but I fought for my life several times during my life, and I'll do whatever the hell I have to do to win that fight. But Anyhow, so I tried to defuse the situation. They just kind of both kept getting pissed off and pissed off. Finally, they say I'm a pain in the ass, and everybody else does it. And there was just no reason, no logic for them. And so they said, we're pulling the load. We're not going to load you. I said, all right, I don't care. You know, not a big deal to me. I'm not going to deal with crap over this. So they get the load pulled off, and I call the customer and tell him what's going on. He's, of course, never had this problem before. And he says, well, I'll get you a load down the street. You know, let me call the guy and we'll get you a load the other place. So I do, and I get in there, and it's easy peasy, breeze, and loaded, and got underway. And that's when I got home last night, a little bit later than I had planned. But it had ate up a lot of my day, so I decided to leave today. But going back to the height requirements. Okay, so now that I told you about all my drama yesterday, I wanted to touch a little bit on height requirements. Federally, you can be up to 14 feet tall without a permit. Some areas, it's only 13 and a half feet tall. Typically, the minimum height for a bridge is 13 and a half feet. You really don't find much under that. It's not always a given, but that's pretty standard. And most of us road trucks will go 13 and a half feet. You can go up to 14. Some people do. I don't like to personally. It's just my own thing. But anything over 14 feet requires a height permit. Now, having said that, depending on what you're carrying, if you're rolling down the highway and you hit a bridge with your load, you might as well park your truck and call an Uber, because you're never going to drive a truck again. You will be unhirable as a company driver. Owning the trucking company, my insurance would go through the roof. I would probably be uninsurable myself. A good friend of mine who owned a rig moving company in West Texas, one of the largest rig moving companies in West Texas, as a matter of fact, he had a driver that was pulling a load and hit a bridge. And it caused, enough damage that they had to have people come out and survey the bridge. That was like a $25 million hit on his insurance. I mean, it was insane. To have engineers come out and retest the integrity of the bridge and fix the bridge and all this. So it's a big deal. And that's why there's always those height control signs on bridges. And you got to be cautious, because just because the warning sign says 14.2, the bridge might only be 14 because of being repaved, because of snow, one thing or the other. So it's always something you got to be careful, especially when you haul oversized loads, which is how I started in the trucking business. Now I don't ever. In fact, I haven't had since I've owned the company. I have not had any height oversize. I do wide loads all the time, but never any height oversize since I've owned this company. So anyhow, going back to hay, what these guys do, and it is very, very common at most of the ranches, is they will load you with a certain amount of bales because the customer wants to receive the most for their money. I understand that. And as a result, it winds up being about 14 and a half, sometimes 14.3 to 14.6 feet tall. Now, everybody and their brother might get away with it. But let me tell you what's going to happen if you get stopped and you get a thorough officer with the Department of Transportation or that's DOT certified. And keep in mind, federal DOT laws are enforced by city, county, state law enforcement. And so, most cities will have one or two commercial vehicle officers that can apply. Now in Arizona, the way that the law reads, you can run 14 feet tall on major highways and interstates. However, inner city loads can only be 13.6 tall. So theoretically, you can load that hay at that farm, but driving to the highway is illegal unless you're permitted over 13.5 feet. Once you're on the highway, you can run 14 feet, but that's it without a permit. So let's say you get stopped by an officer that wants to be very, very thorough. He stops you on the side of the road. Let's say you made it to, I don't know, 500 miles down the road. If he writes you a citation for that height ticket, you're going to have to do one of a couple of things. A, you're going to have a huge ticket. B, you're going to have to purchase a height permit for the load. Or you're going to have to pay someone to come out, offload that load to get it legal, and then you're going to have to either pay for that product to be transferred to its receiver, or destroy the product and pay the receiver for the missing product. That's a pretty big deal. And any which way you cut it, it's pretty expensive for a company. Now, a lot of people are company drivers, and they do it without thought. Yes, they would get a ticket. Ultimately, their company would be responsible for everything else. The driver would get just the ticket. Now, just a ticket in a commercial vehicle is not like just a ticket in your car. It affects what's called your CVSA score. Your CVSA score has a lot to do with, well, has everything to do with your trucking insurance. It has everything to do with your hireability, just a wide variety of things. And companies have CVSA scores, and then individuals have CVSA scores. So a ticket's not just a ticket. On top of the expense, it's a big deal. And the time and the money for getting parked and having to deal with it, I mean, it's just a huge headache. And typically, hay are some of the cheapest loads out there. So why would you want to risk all of that to run illegal? It makes no sense to me. It's never made sense to me. And part of my way on the highway is I hate being told what to do. I choose not to break the law. If you choose to break the law, that's great. Power to you, But I choose not to. And when I have to be told everybody else does it, I get so sick and tired of hearing what everybody else and their brother does. It just drives me nuts. And it's really a shame that drivers take the risks that they do with it, because it makes it bad for the rest of us that want to follow the rules, run legal, and when we go to load at these places, they're just dumbfounded because everybody else does it. Well, it dumbfounds me that drivers are willing to take that chance. And a lot of these company drivers are forced into it. They know they can't say no, and that's a damn shame. At the end of the day, what goes on your truck and trailer, what you transport, is on you. It's your license. It is your ticket. And there's reasons for some of these laws. They're safety. They're trying to prevent things. And it's just a damn shame that more drivers don't stick up and do what's right. And it's a shame that it falls back onto those of us that try to do the right thing and try to run legal, and then have issues like this, where yesterday 2 guys want to get in a fist fight because I tell them I won't break the law. I had that happen before at another big farm out there in Arizona. There was an older man that owned the place, and he had quite the outfit. Been doing it for a long time. Very wealthy man. And he was 7 kinds of pissed when I told him. And it wasn't for this regular customer, but I told him I won't do it. You know, if you don't want to load me, then you don't have to load me. It's nothing personal. It just, I won't do it. And, you know, he was 7 kinds of pissed off, but he wound up loading me because he wanted to move the product. And it just seems if more people would take a stand, then it would be better off for everybody, including them. I'm not risking it. You're not worth my license, my insurance going up. I mean, just on this truck and trailer alone, my insurance is $750 a month. Why would I want to increase that? Why would I want to ruin my CSA score? It just is dumb. So anyhow, that's the deal on what happened yesterday. Kind of long, kind of a little bit of a rant. I am just pulling in here. I'm going to go use the restroom and give me a sugar-free Red Bull. As you'll come to find out, I love sugar-free Red Bull. It's just one of my favorite things, and I know I need to quit drinking it. I just read an article about those energy drinks increase your chances of a stroke by like 500%. And I don't really want a stroke, so yeah, we'll chat with you again here in a minute.